This video is brought to you by Fit Girl Repacks. Fit into the game. After months of waiting, the first major expansion to Saints Row is finally out. With the disastrous launch it had, some have been clinging on to this in hopes that it would salvage the game. We'll see about that. Let me first address the quality of life updates, specifically the combat. Enemies no longer have iframes when they dodge, though sometimes it doesn't really feel that way because enemies in general are still quite spongy, and you'll still have to fiddle around in the menu to get things feeling right. But on the bright side, I will say it does feel a little bit better, but it's not really something worth replaying the campaign for or anything like that. Even the Saints Row subreddit, whose community generally leans in favor of the reboot, has had some mixed reactions to the alterations. With every update, I've noticed some people say the game was improved, and some people say the game has somehow gotten worse. If that's not a sign of an inherently flawed system, then what is? So let's talk about the new district, Sunshine Springs. It's a beautiful map, what can I say? The map remains to be the best part about this game. They're doing a much better job with this than the awful square buildings of Stillport, but it suffers the same fate as the rest of Santo Ileso. Pedestrians still feel two-dimensional as fuck, like they're distant peds but with higher quality models. That makes for one boring-ass map to play in. People want more interactivity. That's why you see so many people wanting interiors. That's why you see so many people wanting to hold hostages and throw them like they could in the previous games. Let's be real, shooting random people on the street feels like ass because I think it's designed to feel like ass. I have a nuanced take when it comes to the whole woke argument about this game. I'll spare you most of it and just say that the reason we can't kill store owners and the reason that pedestrians are so plain is a direct result of them trying to be a bit more sensitive with the subject matter. Thus, you get a bit of a limp experience. The weird, uncanny valley movements and twitches they do. What can I say? It doesn't feel satisfying to interact with the pedestrians at all. Even when the game is trying to tease you with them, they lock your controls until they can walk away. They need to take a page from Postal 2 where the pedestrians were practically begging you to decimate them in the most gratuitous ways. Shout out to Running with Scissors, by the way. Fantastic dev team. We love them. Postal 2 is fucking goated. Postal 4 is probably good. I don't know, but it's probably good. Everyone should go buy it. Sevolution, I'm not that fucking hard to win over. Jesus Christ. Selfie mode is a good, along with the emote wheel. Character creator is still one of the consistently better things about Saints Row, and showing off your character is now easier than ever. So good on them for that. There are still quite a lot of bugs with this game though. Skins resetting is still a persistent annoyance. The map, even though it looks nice, has some pretty noticeable errors throughout it. Clothing layers are still buggy, takedown cameras still jank. General Saints Row jankiness has always been a thing, but some of this stuff steps beyond that usual jank, and it's kind of alarming how frequent and odd these problems can be. But let's talk about the mission pack. Good on Volition for the free updates, but this is the thing you're going to have to pay for. So how is it? The Wingsuit activity is actually fun. Oftentimes I forget the Wingsuit is even a thing, which I kind of prefer. It's one of those features I don't think about until I stumble on it and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a thing, this is kind of fun, what a treat. This is especially highlighted with the new pain and gain gun. I was shocked at how much enjoyment I was getting out of it. You can shoot yourself into the air as an easy way to fly around, and in combination with a pretty map to fly around in, it's one of the few times I catch myself actually enjoying Saints Row. I was worried they'd really lean into this as a gameplay-altering gimmick the way superpowers were, but it's a nice feature interwoven into the gameplay, and this activity highlights how fun it can be. But we're not here for Superman 64, we're here for Saints Row. Let's take a look at the story missions. The entire thing starts out simple enough. This bounty mission is given to you by Eli. Or wait, I guess Kevin.
Yo, have you seen this $1 million wanted posting in Sunshine Springs?
Anyway, you're instructed to pick up a burner phone in Sunshine Springs and are given a hit job by a mysterious client. You have to take out a Hollywood sleazebag who is playing Weekend Warrior at a shooting range. Yes, coincidentally, a shooting range is where you'll be shooting your way through enemies to get to the bounty. It's an extremely plain setup for an extremely plain mission. There's nothing really special going on here. This would have been a good time to introduce that new weapon or something more exciting. It's literally just shoot enemies at a shooting range until you kill the guy you're looking for. I will say maybe a shooting range was appropriate because this mission did give me a proper feeling for their updated combat, but as one of the 3 missions in the pack, it ultimately feels like a waste. Like they just sold you a tutorial mission for something you already know how to do. Anyway, when you kill the guy, you're invited to meet your client who you find out is famous movie star Chris Hardy, who the boss is apparently a fan of. But while the boss expected a $1 million bounty, or at least payment in priceless movie memorabilia, Chris just wants to give him an autograph. Fucking actors. You'll be hearing that line a lot. The remainder of this DLC is all explained in this whiteboard cutscene. It's a very cheaply produced cutscene, apparently not something they wanted to animate with all the characters, so instead you hear this long explanation of the next 2 missions. The big plan to get back at Hardy is to heist his movie treasures during an event he's throwing. So to do that, they're going to disguise the boss as Hardy and walk right in. But first, they need to get 3 photos of him to render a convincing disguise. That's the whole point of the second mission. You follow Hardy around and take photos of him while dodging security guards as he goes through this long scripted sequence. Why the fuck do we need photos of a fucking movie star? There's one of the photos we need right there. This whole mission is stupid. Even worse, it bugged out for me. During the opening mission, you have to climb up on this ledge, take down a guard, and wait. And wait. And wait. And wait for Hardy to get into position and take his photo. Every time I went to take his photo, it said I was too far away. This led to me spending the next 15 minutes trying to figure out how I could possibly get closer to him. What position did I have to be at? Just outright bouts of confusion because this simple-ass bullshit objective wasn't working. Well, it turns out if you changed your FOV, that completely displaces how the camera works and the game never registers the scan. That is bad. Waste my fucking time on this stupid-ass bullshit. This mission sucks. I had to sit through that, so you do too. This is one of those missions you either love or you hate. You're locked into a walk cycle, and for this entire segment, you're just supposed to be in the immersion of it all. Well, I would be if the graphics weren't bugging out. I have a soft spot for this kind of stuff. I find it amusing, but to be honest, after all that scripted shenanigans in the last mission, I quickly walked past most of the prompts in order to force the mission to progress. You jump over lasers, get to the loot, your gang, your friends, take the loot, you shoot your way to the roof, hijack a helicopter, and now you've got to protect your friends as they make the getaway run. Like Guardian Angel. It's a pretty decent segment, kind of highlights how small the map really is, but it's a pretty fun sequence. Aerial combat is something we didn't get much of, but it was fun here. For the final sequence, you have to lower a magnet and catch your friends as they drive off a cliff. This was featured in the trailer in a much more cinematic and cool way. Feels a bit anticlimactic in practice. This is one of the few times I think an interactive cutscene would have been in favor to the sequence. It appears they had bigger plans for those kind of sequences, and I think implemented here would have looked cool. But I much prefer the alternate ending anyway.
Oops.
And that's basically it. It rolls into the final cutscene where Hardy is left broke and ruined. The end. So does this expansion save the game? Hell no. They would need a Ballad of Gay Tony level of an expansion to maybe get people to come around. This isn't close. This is the most grounded expansion we can expect to get, seeing as the next one appears to be an activity based around Boot Hill Island, and the final one is about LARPers, which is one of the more polarizing themes of this generally hated game. It feels like they're trying to copy the Saints Row 3 DLC format for this game, which isn't going to win anyone back. This is just a 3-mission set about a random thing. Something you'd expect in a GTA diversion, but much weaker. Is that worth $10? Is that going to retroactively make the campaign better? It really isn't. On average, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete, so it's very short. Maybe shorter if I didn't encounter that fucking camera bug in Mission 2. Even worse is that once you complete the 3 missions, you can't replay them. Very baffling as to why. Saints Row 3 and 4 let you replay the DLC to your heart's content. Why not with the reboot? Not that there's really much to replay, but we should at least have the option. Anyway, you unlock Hardy's crib as your reward. Inside are a bunch of little treasures from the previous games. Well, Saints Row 3 and 4. You know, the real Saints Row games. You could have had Troy's badge, you could have had Aisha's gold record, but no. We gotta have Zemos' beloved microphone.
Bitch took my shit and ran.
But with all the Saints Row 3 and 4 love going on, it's clear whoever was in charge of set decoration didn't care much for Saints Row 4. Given how many reference images you can find of this character, you would think they'd know the proper orientation of the model. So either they didn't know and none of the art directors even cared to correct them, or I have another theory. The placement of Sid is symbolic of what Volition thinks of the Saints Row community. They're turning their back on you, the player. Or take it another way, even a Saints Row 4 character turns its back on the reboot boss out of disgust. Hashtag not my boss. It's a very deep and introspective move by Volition, I commend it. Okay, to close this off, I'll make a brief comment on the revised lines in the campaign. Apparently they were replaced so that they weren't so cringy, or as the official explanation goes, to give you a better idea of the characters. And mostly what they've done is cut out dialogue completely. The funniest joke in the game ended up getting cut. Can you believe it?
The funniest joke in the game is when the boss decries something as being just a pair of sweaty horse swinging in the breeze like a...
The repetitious gag of the boss decrying it was their first day also ended up getting cut, which is kind of weird that they felt the need to cut that joke and then basically reuse the same repetitious gag for fucking actors.
Fucking actors.
Fucking actors.
Fucking actors, right?
It's like by cutting it, they're admitting it's more annoying than funny, only to then make the joke again for the DLC. At this point, I just feel bad for them. Like, yeah, those lines were kind of awkward and weren't landing too well for people. But when you start to peel back away content to make the game more tolerable, you're just admitting that the game's tone is completely awkward to begin with, and that the whole game basically needs another revision. You think those were the only cringy lines to cut, Volition? You might as well keep withering this game down to nothing and rebuild it. Those lines are nothing compared to this entire mission right here. Compared to this plot thread that goes absolutely nowhere. In a weird way, I'm kind of upset that they altered anything. Do what you've always done, Volition. Stick to your guns. You wrote this shit, you need to live with it. Embrace the cringe like you always do. Don't go bending at the knee now. Otherwise, you're gonna have to rewrite all this shit. Anyways, that's it. Alright guys, you tell me what you think about the Heist and the Hazardous. Did this pack save Saints Row for you like it did me? And what do you think about the upcoming expansions? Leave your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time.